Hamas saying that Israel has killed its political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, in an airstrike in Iran. Let's go now live to Jerusalem to Bloomberg's Dan Williams. Dan, good morning. What do
Good
we
morning to
actually
you.
know about? Good morning. What do we know about what happened?
We've had statements on this from Hamas and from within Iran. Apparently, in the early morning hours before dawn, the political leader of Hamas, a man called Ismail Haniyeh, who was in Iran, along with his counterpart from another armed faction in the Gaza Strip that's been battling Israel, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, these two leaders were in Tehran. We're in Iran for the inauguration of the new president. And apparently in the early hours, Haniyeh was killed by a guided missile that struck his residence along with one bodyguard.
And what does this mean, Dan, for the Gaza ceasefire talks that have been ongoing?
That's an excellent question. I imagine Hamas will now be recalculating, assessing. It's worth remembering here that Israel, which has not confirmed carrying out this killing, which in itself suggests that the Israelis would like to draw a line under this event and perhaps not to themselves fuel whatever escalation vector there might be here. They've said in general that it's their belief that military pressure on Hamas, and it's worth remembering that Israel has vowed to destroy Hamas since the group carried out the October 7th attack, which triggered the Gaza war, which is now increasingly looking like a regional war. But Israel's thinking is that the greater the military pressure on Hamas, the more Hamas's surviving leaders have to worry about their continued survival, the more the chance that they will accede to a truce arrangement, if only to win themselves a reprieve, some breathing space to reassess and plan ahead.
Okay. We also have not heard much yet from the US, of course. Lloyd Austin and Antony Blinken, the Defense Secretary, Secretary of State, of course. They will surely be vital in terms of understanding what happens next. Also, you say, the idea of a widening regional war, that is the real big concern. From the Israeli perspective, is this a coup for Benjamin Netanyahu, who's been under enormous pressure to accept a ceasefire deal? What does this mean for him?
I think that's a very good point. Assuming this was Israel, and again, it's worth remembering that Israel actually was the first to say that a few hours before the event in Tehran, it carried out an attempt on the life of a very senior member of Hezbollah. This is another Iranian-backed militia that's been fighting Israel since October. And apparently that attempt in Beirut was successful, according to the Israelis, who've explicitly said they managed to kill who was the man who was effectively the chief of staff, the top general of Hezbollah, in a targeted strike on a building in the Lebanese capital. So assuming these two were indeed by Israel and were indeed successful, it's very, very impressive in terms of operations. We're talking about two Middle East capitals, two very senior targets with apparently very limited damage around them, kind of surgical strikes that could also be considered of strategic value. So in a sense, Netanyahu will have burnished his credentials here, having been battered by the October 7th attacks that really blindsided Israel and caused casualties on an unprecedented scale. The question is whether this might be enough for him in terms of saving face to enter a compromise with Hamas, as Israel would see it, in a truce, or whether he will try to blaze ahead, increase the pressure even more. Israel has, on the one hand, said it intends to destroy Hamas. It's also offered Hamas essentially survival to most of its members if they surrender and deliver the hostages. So if Israel is confident enough that it now has Hamas on the ropes, it may decide to press this campaign. On the other, it may think that it's caused enough pain and enough surprise and enough strategic damage to its enemies that it is in a position to enter a truce, perhaps with improved terms as far as Israel is concerned.